Hello there. So today, what I'm going to do is I am going to go through the ban list card per card and give my opinions on each change in the ban list. Now, this recording is going to be done in a single take because I just don't like how robotic my voice sounds when I'm reading off of a script, and I'm hoping this will help that a little bit. Besides which, it's just sort of an informal video giving my opinions on things. So, if you don't like unedited one-shots, you might not want to listen to this because it's probably going to annoy the hell out of you. But anyway, so just let's get right into it, I guess. The first the first card is Blaster, Dragon Ruler of Infernos. I'm just gonna get through all of the Dragon Rulers right away since they were all hit for the same reason. I actually didn't know why they were hit initially. A friend of mine informed me that there is an FTK, involving them. I have mixed feelings about this one because while the Dragon Rulers are just ridiculously overpowered and give way too much power to Lightsworns, it also hurts a lot of other decks that needed them for either combo plays or just to give them a big beater. Lavals are even more dead. I mean, they were pretty much already dead anyway. What's that new archetype? Not Yosenju's, but the other one. Ritual Beasts. They took a small hit from this. It's not going to make them any less competitive, I don't think, but they did take a hit from this because they did like abusing Tempest quite a bit. Frogs. Almost every different type of frog deck makes use of Tidal. But like I said, they were kind of overpowered. I mean, there was almost 2 formats full of just Dragon Rulers. But, I think it's going to do more good than bad, to be honest with you. Next on the list is Snatch Steal, going from limited to banned. This, again, pretty mixed feelings about this one. I like Snatch Steal a lot as a card, but I do have to admit that it is very overpowered. This is the reason the only reason Snatch Steal wasn't banned was because, and Brain Control still was because it was a MST heavy format. A lot of people were either maining or siding outs to Quiplorths, which of course are very weak to spell and trap destruction. So it wasn't so bad. The problem is that now that Quiplorths are getting hit so hard, which I will get into later, there's not going to be as much need to run heavy spell and trap. Like, you're not going to need to run 3 MSTs anymore, so that would make Snatch Steal a lot better. Not only that, but I mean, it's just a 1-card win condition in some cases. Like, oh, your opponent has a big monster. Oh, I'll just use Snatch Steal and take it. Great. Oh, it's mine now. Herp derp. Like, the quote-unquote cost of giving your opponent 1,000 life every turn really didn't offset how overpowered it was. So while I did really enjoy it, I'm not going to be too disappointed about it. Next up is Sinister Serpent at 1. Now, this is one of those cards they took a lot of banned cards, re-released them under a new errata, which totally changed how they worked, and I guess they're just going to test to see how it goes. Sinister Serpent, I think, was the least changed out of all of them. The only thing they really changed about his effect was that if it's in your graveyard during your opponent's end phase, it's banished. So they're making it a little bit slow, significantly slower, but you can still abuse it. There's still ways to really just make use of that really, really easily in a lot of decks, I think. So we're going to see if I don't think any of the top decks are really going to touch it. Maybe Burning Abyss, but they don't really need it. They already have enough floaters. I'm just going to be interested to see what happens with it, if anything. Tour Guide from the Underworld. Now, I really disagree against this one, because while it is a hit against Burning Abyss, which is something that really needs to happen, it was a hit in the wrong direction. Tour Guide from the Underworld helps a lot of different, strategies. Like, I know I personally used it in UA. Like, it was a good engine. Tour Guide and Skarm, were a really good engine. So, and from what I've been told, they don't really use more than 1 or 2 tour guide usually anyway, so this was like the bare minimum they could have done to hit Burning Abyss. They were basically untouched, kind of like Necroz, but they hurt a lot of other decks in the process. Like my UA deck is going to have to be totally rebuilt because I used Tour Guide and Skarm to sort of stall while I got my UA cards, if I didn't get all that I needed first turn. And I think a lot of other decks used a similar engine. The problem with Burning Abyss is that I don't even know how they can hit that deck without just destroying it. Like, when you're hitting a deck, you never want to just outright ruin it because it's sort of unfair to the people who got that deck. But at the same time, you do have to balance it out with the rest of the game. And I don't think this was a good way to go about that because they just hit too many other things, and Burning Abyss really didn't take that much of a hit from it. Next up, Dragon Ravine from Forbidden to Limited. I hate this card with a passion, but it's mostly from just bad experiences with Dragoonides. I always thought Dragoonides was kind of a skillless deck, and this card was pretty much what gave them all of their consistency. But now with the Dragon Rulers banned, I can see it coming back because it does give dragons a lot of consistency, like not just Dragoonides, but many other dragon decks. So I think in this case, I'm gonna, take the good with the bad being Dragoonides and some of their more skillless plays. Although honestly, all of their plays are basically irrelevant now. So we'll see. Another sort of mixed feelings one for me. Preparation of Rites 2-1 from Unlimited. This hits Necroz. Doesn't hit them that hard though. Like, yes, it doesn't allow them to go +1 just by playing this card as much, but it wasn't really, it didn't help their consistency too much. I mean, I guess it did because you could get Bryanak and then Bryanak could get whatever, but I think that what would have been better is that if they made it so that you had to have a ritual spell in your grave to use it rather than just being able to use it to get a monster, and you could possibly get a ritual spell if you wanted. It's not that big a hit in my opinion. They're going to have to get hit a lot harder 3 months from now. It's a good start though. It's going to slow them down a bit. I don't mind it too much. Again, I would have liked to see Bryanak go to Wonderband because this is going to hit a lot of other decks as well, and I don't like it when other decks get hit because, Konami doesn't want to hit the bread and butter of one of their big selling decks right now. Next card, Sacrifice from Limited to Unlimited. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest hits for Cleese. The other one I'll mention in a few minutes. Because this, now, to be fair, it's going to drop them from like tier 1 to tier 2. It's not a huge drop. They're still going to be competitive. I don't think you're going to see much of them in in big tournaments anymore, just because they've been hit the hardest out of the 3 top decks right now. It's something. It's definitely, I hate Cleese just because, their whole thing was, Scout, whatever, Scout was pretty much the big thing they had, like that. Any deck that has that much power shouldn't have that much consistency. I think that when you're making decks, you have to balance power and consistency. If what something does isn't that powerful, well great, give them all the consistency in the world to do that thing. But if what they do is really powerful, well, you're going to have to balance that so that they don't get it all the time, and sometimes they have to play around the fact that they didn't get their big play, or whatever it is. This helps that because it disallows Cleese as much, they can't float as hard, they can't just keep on using Sacrifice to make it so that their monsters, they don't have as much searching power anymore, and this is one of 2 big plays that Konami really hurt. Definitely in favor of this. I would like to see Scout here instead, but Scout did get hit, so I'm not too worried about it. I think, unfortunately, this is going to mean that they're not going to get hit as hard next list, if at all, and they definitely need a bit more fine-tuning to make them, fair for the rest of the game, but we'll take what we can get for now. Next, Symbols of Heritage. Again, I wasn't entirely sure why this got hit, because I've seen it in the past. I've been playing this game for 9 years, competitively anyway, for 9 years now. This thing was basically just used for silly FTKs and OTKs. Putting it to 1 fixes all that. They're never going to have to worry about it again unless they unban it, which they probably won't. Temple of the Kings. Really good card that got... Another one of those really good cards that got hit. We actually, fun fact, the TCG has never had a point in time when Temple of the Kings wasn't banned. It was released to us and banned the day it came out. They changed it so that you could only use 1 trap from your hand per turn, so you can't basically... The big problem was, like, Exodia decks were using all of those, like, oh, draw 1 traps, and they were using that to facilitate that. At least that's from what I understand it. Now that you can only use it once, I don't know if it's even going to see any play anymore. It's actually kind of trash now, in my opinion, because when are you ever going to want to play trap? Like, it's not like you can play traps from your hand on your opponent's turn. At least as far as I understand it, maybe you can. And if you can, I could see, like, a few decks playing this, but it's like, if it's going to be another MST-heavy format, it's going to be pretty bad, because you're like, oh, I'm just going to keep all my traps in my hand and then use them when my opponent plays the thing. But then your opponent uses MST, it's like, oh, well, now all these traps are in my hand and I can't do jack shit with them. The only time I could really see this ever coming back is maybe if Heavy Storm became a thing again, like it got unbanned. But even then, I'm not super... That's that's not a super great play, especially if MST is still floating around. Crush Card Virus. Okay, now this one everybody was really excited for. It's another one of those cards that was limited for a long time, or banned for a long time, because of how overpowered it was. And they hit it again. They hit it a number of different ways, and I don't really want to take time to explain it here, but they've hit it pretty hard. The only decks I think that are going to really make use of it are, well, Burning Abyss, and I don't know, there's not a lot of decks that play Dark Monsters that have monsters low enough to really make use of it. Crush Card, I mean. So we'll see how things go. You'll see it in Burning Abyss, and I think that's it. Really, it's not going... And, of course, when Burning Abyss use it, they're pretty much going to win, because it is still a really powerful card, but, Exchange of the Spirit. This card was stupidly made. They changed it, basically, they changed it so both players have to have at least 15 cards in their graveyard before you can use it, so you can't just play this and win because your opponent doesn't have any cards left in their deck first turn. Like I said, really poorly designed to begin with. Now it's kind of balanced, but it's balanced in a way that makes it totally irrelevant. You might see a couple silly little decks use it in the future, but I wouldn't be surprised if this comes off the list sometime down the road under its current errata. Ring of Destruction. Again, another one of the cards I was talking about that, yada yada yada, banned, changed, whatever. This one was changed. It was hit so hard, and that really hurts me, because I remember back in the day using this card when I first got into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was hilarious winning with this card. Basically, its original errata was target 1 card in the field on either, any monster on the field. Sorry, target 1 monster on the field, any monster on the field, didn't matter whose side it was on. Destroy it, and then both players take damage equal to that monster's attack. So basically, you could do a lot of damage, and then you'd still have monsters on the field, activate this, and win that turn. Or, if there was a grind game going, and you were both sort of low on life points, you could just wait until a monster that was big enough was played, activate this, destroy it, and win the game like that. Was really broken. It got banned for a damn good reason, but it was one of those cards that required a lot of skill to use, and if you used it poorly, you could end up fucking yourself over as well. They changed it in a number of ways that made it basically unplayable, in my opinion, unfortunately. The first way that I can think of is that you can only target opponents or monsters on your opponent's side of the field. The second is that you can't target a monster if that monster has more attack than your opponent's current life points. So you can't... The only time you can win with this card is if your opponent has... if your opponent has a monster that's attack is exactly equal to their life points. I think that's all they really changed about it, but that in and of itself just sort of kills the card. They killed the card's versatility, and they just killed its power. And since it's a 1-for-1 at best, you're really not going to see much play from it anymore. Like, it lost all of its versatility is basically what I'm saying. Like, I'm personally not going to play it. Unfortunately, there's not much to say about this card. I'm just really disappointed that they changed it as much as they did. Solemn Warning. Or no, sorry. I misread. Skill Drain. That's what I meant to say. Skill Drain at 1 from Unlimited. Now, this card is honestly one I've been wanting to see on the ban list for a very long time. It creates any card that basically just says, oh, you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. Floodgates. Need to get hit. Like, one day when the format is more balanced, I'd like to see both of the Imprisoning Mirrors gone. I'd like to see Naturia Beast, Naturia Barkion both gone, Naturia Bamboo Shoot. Anything that prevents you from playing, that's just not fun. It's not really fair. And it makes deck creation very hard because you always have to be like, oh, well, what happens if my opponent plays Naturia Beast? Oh, well, my deck that has 25 spells in it, I can't play anymore, so I automatically lose. You know, it's just no one likes playing against those kind of things. It's the same thing, like, it's basically the same reasoning I use to argue against Exodia being unbanned. But yes, Skill Drain going to 1. Not only is that just really good for the game in general, it absolutely kills Kleeploths, especially Kliplorths, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Again, especially against Necros. I mean, it's good for almost every deck, but it's especially good for Necros because that was like their only play against Necros was, oh, use Skill Drain. Well, there goes all of your monster effects. You can't Trishula me. Lol. Just really good decision on Konami's part. I'm surprised I can actually say that. But anyway, I'd like to see it banned at one point, but I mean, with it at 1, I mean, even decks that used it as a focal point, really, like, they're dead. And I'm glad. Kliplorths might still use 1, but honestly, like, as I said, you're not going to see it as much anymore, especially in competitive circles. Really good decision. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Vanity's Emptiness to 1. Now, I know a lot of competitive players are really pissed off about this one. And then there's a lot of competitive players that are really happy about this one. Personally, I'm really happy about this one. This card is blatantly overpowered. We've known that since the Dragon Ruler format. You know, it just wasn't it wasn't a well-designed card. The only downside is, like, I compare it to, what was that card called? Royal something. It was a card where you could activate it on your opponent's turn. Neither player could play spell cards, but during your standby phase, you could choose to pay 800 to keep it on the field, or choose to let it be destroyed, which meant that your opponent couldn't play any spells, but you could just by not paying the cost. That's basically what I equate it to, because most decks don't keep it on the field. They use it to stop their opponent's plays for a turn, or 2, or 3, and then get rid of it either by, you know, using a spell or whatever. They don't. The only deck that I can think of that really keeps it on the field is Yosenju, or would want to keep it on the field is Yosenju's. It's just poorly designed. I'd like to see it banned someday, along, you know, for basically the same reasons that Skill Drain should be banned, but this is a really good step. It's a step in the right direction, and honestly, you know, another really good choice by Konami. You know, you got to give them props. Next, we are moving to semi-limited. Okay, Quiplorth Scout 2 from Unlimited. I'd like to see this at 1. Actually, you know what? I'd like to see it banned, but seeing it at 2, it's a nice start, especially in conjunction with all the other ways that Cleese have been hit this format, or in this ban list. Not much to say about this one. I mean, I think Cleese are overpowered, and I think Scout's a big part of that. Necros of Bryanak. Now, I would have liked to see this limited. Well, actually, I would have liked to see it banned, but, you know, realistically, I would have liked to see it limited. It's just one of their big search cards. It's like one of their most important cards in their deck. It would have just been really, you know, it's a nice gesture, but it honestly doesn't change that much, because, I mean, if you're at a point in time when you're reaching your 3rd Bryanak, you're pretty much fucked anyway, as far as, you know, a Necros player is concerned. Next, Legendary Six Samurai Shien, semi-limited from limited. This is totally legit, especially since Gateway, they're, the most devastating card they had got limited. Banned. It's been banned for a while. Six Samurais aren't relevant at all. Just give them back their Sheen. 9 times out of 10, they're going to go for Beast in this format anyway, so there was no reason not to give them back Sheen to 2 or 3. Mostly irrelevant. The only place this is really going to be relevant is at locals, where there's a lot of casual players, like them having 2 Sheen. They don't usually have the resources to go 2 Sheen first turn anyway. So, and there's a lot of outs for that play to begin with. So, not super relevant. Nice that they're, trying to actually tune their ban list for once, instead of keeping Bestiary on the list for years and years and years after Gladiator Beast had never been relevant. I'll get to that, though. Next, Charge the Light Brigade at 2. Sort of the same reason as Shen. This deck's not that relevant in competitive circles. And especially after they got hit so hard, especially in the, by losing all their Dragon Rulers, which was one of their big plays for, the last, year and a half. This was just a good choice, because it's giving Lightsworns a bit of power back. Now, with them losing rulers, are they going to be anywhere near as relevant? I don't think so, mainly because they won't be able to search Judgment Dragon as easily. They're still not going to be bad, and this is going to help a bit, but, I would expect, if I were you, to stop seeing Lightsworns around, except by the 12-year-olds at your locals, basically. Sacred Sword of the 7 Stars, semi-limited from limited. Pretty obvious. The card that it was basically used to be, the cards that it was meant to be used with got banned, so there's no reason this shouldn't be unbanned at all. No decks use it that I'm aware of. I'm supposed some decks could make use of it, but no decks do that I know of, because just drawing isn't all that as good as it used to be. It's not as good as it was back in the Perfect Circle era. It's all about searching nowadays. For Rizzle. Sorry. Next on the list, Brotherhood of the Firefist Spirit. There's no reason to keep Firefist things limited anymore. Firefists are totally irrelevant. They're way too slow in this format. Maybe if the format slows down again, I could see it, but no, I don't see any reason to keep anything on the Firefist band. Burner, Lightning, Rectin, and Steam, the, mini Dragon Rulers, all unbanned. They are basically just vanilla monsters at this point. There's no reason to keep them banned. A good decision on Konami's part. Gladiator Beast Bestiary. This has been years and years in the making. They banned Bestiary limited Bestiary back when Gladiator Beasts were the king of the mountain. They have not been a super relevant deck in years. Giving them back Bestiary is not going to make them a super relevant deck. This was a long time coming, and I'm glad that it finally happened. Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. Now, this is pretty weird. Gorz is unlimited, but Treg isn't. Now, personally, I find Gorz a bit better, but I can see why other people might find Treg better. Gorz is basically irrelevant right now. I could see it getting a little bit more relevant just because we're going into a format, I think, where there's not going to be much spell and traps, mainly because Necros don't set spell and traps. Necros don't really set that much, and the current build of Burning Abyss doesn't either, although from what I've heard they're going back to a more defensive build, which is admittedly kind of hilarious. But anyway, just getting the relevant cards off of the ban list is kind of just a good choice on Konami's part. Lone Fire Blossom, same reason as Gorz, same reason as Xian, whatever. It's totally irrelevant. Let people have what they have. Goyo Guardian. Goyo Guardian, is a good idea. Putting it to 2 was not really that useful. Putting it to 3 isn't that useful either, because nobody runs more than one anyway. But, if you're going to put it to 2, you might as well just put it to 3. There's very few cards that are niche enough to be put at 2. Like Shen, they should have just unlimited it. I mean, people would probably lose their shit, but, you know, let's face it, people are kind of dumb. It's good to see it at 3 again, even though I don't think anyone's ever really going to make use of it. Heretic Seal of Convocation, again, Heretic's totally irrelevant. You might as well just give them something, because they don't have much of anything right now. Now, I guess they have this, and they also have Dragon's Ravine again, which is going to be very good for them, but, you know, there's better dragon decks. There is just better things to do. I can think of some other cards that could probably come off the list, but anyway. So yeah, that is the list. That is the ban list. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Despite the fact that I would have liked to see Necroz and Burning Abyss get hit more, realistically, they wouldn't, because Konami would lose money from that. Well, they wouldn't lose money from that, but they wouldn't make as much money from that. Now, what other cards do I think should come off the list? Let me just take a quick look here. Cyberstein, I mean, Japan has it, but I guess Japan also has they have a lot more traps unbanned than we do, like just generic traps, so that could play into it. Fishborg Blaster, it was really good for comboing and synchroing. You know, give Frog something, man. Give Frog something. Don't be mean. Magical Scientist, for the same reason as Cyberstein, you know, it's not super relevant right now. Substitoad, but admittedly that was mostly for personal reasons. You know, give Frog something. Just give him something. Substitoad 1, I don't think that's going to make a lot of, you know... The reason why Substitoad was banned because of an FTK that it had with Mass Driver. Well, now that Mass Driver is banned, there is no reason why Substitoad should still be banned. Now, it is kind of broken cycling through your whole deck in a single turn, but, you know, maybe they could bring it back, you know, errata it like they have errated like a bunch of other cards that were unlimited, make it so it was only once per turn. Of course, if they did that, then they would basically, you know, ruin it. But, I don't know. I think they should bring it back with its original errata. Give Frogs something, man. They need it. Now, I don't technically agree with these ones, but Bryonac and Trishula should be unbanned. Trishula and Bryonac... Now, I mean, I guess technically Bryonac doesn't actually interact the same way as its Necroz counterpart, but Trishula does. They are literally the same card. So, if Necroz get to have their own little Trishula, there's no reason that everyone else shouldn't also have access to a Trishula if they want to. Trishula should be at 3 as long as Trishula of Necroz is at 3. Just looking through here, just give me a second. You see, I agree with most of the other things on this list for various reasons. Time Seal, I could see that going to 1. Like, but, you know, I don't know, you know. Trap Dust Shoot and Time Seal, they're both kind of broken, but if they were at 1, you know, Trap Dust Shoot would be really good against Necroz. I mean, it would be good against basically everything, but at this point in time, you know, Mind Crush isn't really all that different, because people search so much that it's just like, oh, Mind Crush, there goes the card you just searched. I mean, I guess Trap Dust Shoot is a bit different because you can just use it whenever, so it is, don't get me wrong, it is better, but if they put it to 1, I think that would be, you know, fair. I just like attacking the hand. Just, shh, don't question it. Don't question it. Let's see, what else would I like to... Now, I'd like to see Artifact Modeltarg banned, but that's never going to happen, so... I'd like to see Exodia banned. That's not going to happen. Globe Bulb, if they put it to 3, I'd be happy as hell. Just because it would give Synchro plays something to do. Like, it would just give them more plays, which is always nice. Insectors. If they could probably, at this point, you know, unban or unlimit one of the insectors, either Dragonfly or Hornet. Probably Hornet, just because Dragonfly has some really silly shit it can do. And Hornet, it just destroys one card. Now, don't get me wrong, that's really powerful, but destroying cards isn't super relevant right now. Right now, because those two cards are hit, they've got nothing going for them. So, unban one of them, see how it goes. If it's too overpowered, ban it again. Who cares? Do it. Do it. Darkstrike Fighter should probably be unbanned because no one's using it anyway. TG Hyperlibrarian, might as well unban it because, again, no one's using it anyway. Limiter removal. Nah, never mind. That probably stays where it could probably stay where it is. You see, I'm having a hard time, thinking of anything else. Gear. Fuck it. Put it back up to 3. They're so irrelevant now. Like, they are totally and utterly outclassed as the rank 4 spam deck by Telenites that there's no reason they should should still be, suffering the slings and arrows of a ban list. Like, anything that's gear related should just be unbanned. It's that simple. Or, alternatively, if you want to set that precedent, start hitting Tellarknight stuff. Because Tellarknights are heads and tails better than Geargias as far as, a rank 4 spam deck is concerned. Honest, just put it at 3. I really disagree with the semi-limit because there's very few cards that deserve to be there. Like, you either should be limited, banned, or unbanned. The semi-limit's always been this kind of place where they test things, but some things just end up getting stuck there. Like, Geometry and Chain Strike have been there for years, and they should just either be banned or unbanned. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, so basically everything on the semi list, I could say, Scout should be at 1, Guard Trooper should be unlimited, Chaos Sorcerer, Honest, Necroface, Summoner Monk, Tragodia should all be unlimited. Bryanak should be either limited or banned. Shen should be unlimited. Advanced Ritual Art should be limited, or maybe, I don't know. I really don't like this card from a designs perspective, so I personally would like to see it limited. Chain Strike, unlimited. Charge the Light Brigade, unlimited. Dark Hole, unlimited. Sacred Sword of the 7 Stars, unlimited. Ceasefire, unlimited. Geometria, unlimited. Like, there's really nothing that deserves to be here. The only thing that I can really think of that's sort of like it's at a really good place in the semi-limited section is Dark Hole. And that's just because, having 3 Dark Holes in a Regeki, that'd be some hilariously dumb, just dumb. But yeah, those were my thoughts on the ban list, what I think about the cards that were changed, what I think should still be changed, and there you go. That's it. So I'm throwing this up here on the YouTubes, not even editing it. I don't care. Like, what, 3 people are going to listen to it anyway? Okay, bye.